بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وبه نستعين ثم الصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين. Dear sisters and brothers, Salaam alaikum. I pray that you are well, inshallah. And even if you don't feel well, I hope, inshallah, you get so much energy tonight that it helps you. We are in heaven, by the way, right now. You know, sometimes in these last few days of the month of Ramadan, I was thinking, isn't it so amazing to have the Shahr Ramadan? Imagine if we didn't have it. How dull would the year be? It's so nice, honestly. I feel like the whole month is just such a break from the routines of life, and we get to connect to God, connect to Quran, connect to each other. I'm very happy. There's some of you I'm seeing 3 days in a row. I hadn't seen you in a year. I'm so happy. I feel like if this is not heaven, what is heaven? Getting to see such lovely people so often. Alhamdulillah. So let's recite salawat for yourself. Also, bless the lovely Shabab Al-Sibtayn team. They're working so hard, 24/7 almost. I sleep sometimes, wake up, message them, they're still up working. I sleep a little bit more, wake up, message them, they're still working. Should we recite salawat for this lovely youth? Also, what an amazing recitation of the Quran, and what a lovely surah our brother had chosen. It was fantastic, honestly. Jazakumullah. I was tempted to forget about our own talk and talk about this surah. It's so powerful. Surah Al-Insan. There's so much to talk about. Maybe if we have time by the end of tonight, we'll come back to this surah. It's so fascinating. And subhanallah, it's actually very relevant to the discussion we want to have. Allah, inshallah, maybe we can come to it. Oh, Bismillah, I feel like it's time to really get to the topic. If you remember, the past few nights we've been talking about the idea that the times are changing. And if we don't understand this, we will bring systems that worked for so long from previous times into current situation, and a lot of the times the system would give you the opposite outcome of what you want. The same thing that for so long worked and kept us safe, kept our children safe. By the way, so many times I say our children safe, people think I have 10, 20 children. But please pray, inshallah, if God wants to give us a child this year. I don't have a child. And when I say our children, I'm talking about all of us. But anyways, the systems that kept us safe, over the past, they are starting to lose their impact. And they're not even livable. It's not that should we use it or not. It's that you can't even use it. One of the things I mentioned was that before, insan wouldn't ask about options. There were very few options. There were a few games, a few of anything really. Few games, few items of clothing. There was just one model of tea. For many people, there wasn't even coffee. You just go 1-2 generations back. That's the world people lived in. There weren't that many options. And now you're living at a time where everything has so many options. Even for tea, honestly, have you ever been to Sainsbury's or Tesco, or I don't know if you're one of the better people, the elite, you're going to Waitrose, I don't know where you guys go. We go to Aldi. But have you been to the section where they have tea? How many options of tea there are. And they're making tea out of plants you would not expect. If they see a plant, it turns into a herbal drink. Honestly, Asan, you get confused. Allah, imagine you're living in a world with all of these options. It's not like before. Before there was one tea. And I remember even when I was a child, I hadn't seen coffee. I was, I think, 15, 16 years old the first time I had coffee. Oh, there you go, there's a million types of coffee. You can roast it this way, use that machine, this percentage. The same is also with ideas. Before, all the ideas you were exposed to were the ideas your parents would say, your school, and I'm saying go 1 or 2 generations back, okay? Go before internet. People around you had the same faith. Children you played with had the same faith. Most of you, your parents, their neighbors had the same faith. Someone like me, the whole country had the same faith. So in terms of the marketplace of ideas and lifestyles, there was just one. Everyone had this one. You wouldn't even think about it, do I need to change it? No, it was just there. Now, you go to work in one workplace, there may be 4 people with 4 different lifestyles. You go to university, there's maybe 10 different lifestyles, 10 different faiths. Even within Shia, apparently there are a few different styles. I didn't know that. I thought we have one Shia, but they say, nah, Masalan, there's this type of Shia, there's that type of Shia, then there's that non-Shia, then there's that non-Muslim, then there's that this type of that. Oh. You go to university, suddenly you see, oh my God, there's like 10 different options there. Now, if you want to treat your child the way you would treat them 100 years ago, you're going to be in trouble. Why? And I've seen this, these are the things you're telling me. I'm just sharing the collective experiences back with you so that you can make better decisions for your children. Imagine if a person thinks that I can still work like before. I tell my child, do something, and expect them to just do it. My child asks questions, why should I do this? Like, do it. Someone told me to do it, I'm telling you to do it. This child, for a few years while he's at home or she's at home, says, okay. Then suddenly goes to university, says, oh my God, there are so many other options. I wasn't ready for this. But before as well, you could even be a little bit naughty. We're the good people. Other faiths, other people, they're bad. You could be naughty and say that to your child. Now your child goes to university and says, actually, this person has different faith, but they're so honest. They're so modest. Or a person goes to workplace and says, you know what, Sheikh? I actually feel like my non-Muslim colleagues are more trustable. This would have never happened for many people 200-300 years ago. Everyone lived within their own circles. Now they come out, they meet other people like, oh, what happened? So this idea that I can create a closed system for my child and then this way they will be safe will no longer work. I'm not saying don't do it. If you can't do it, I'm saying you can't do it anymore. How can you close a system in this world? One aspect of it is in terms of ideas. I'm not going to let certain ideas reach my child. Oh, let's see if you can make that possible. Either all of you have to leave the world and go live on a cave, or if you live any city in the world right now, that's impossible. Although I had a teacher who said now you can't even go to a cave and be safe. Because if you go to a cave, I'm sure there's a group of people who find that, oh, there's this cave on Google Maps. Let's go and do a picnic there or hiking there. They'll come find you in the cave and expose their ideas to you. There's nowhere in the world you can go and have a closed system for yourself and your family. A lot of people still think of cities in the world where they think over there there will be closed systems. You have no idea. All of that is gone. I'm hearing news about cities that I don't want to name because of the respect for the cities. In cities, you can't imagine ideas are reaching there more than it's reached here. No city in the world you can imagine, you can go and say, you know what, let me have that closed system. Ideas wouldn't reach my child, I'll be the only source of their information. That's not going to work. Okay, so in a time like this, what should I do? If you please recite salawat. I said yesterday, actually let me not share the solution yet. Let's keep it a little bit farther back to the lecture. It's for your own sake, by the way. Let me mention, and I want to first really convince you that that is not livable anymore. Because as long as you're not convinced, you say, okay, now you go back home, you try the previous method, and you mess up your children. Or even yourself, by the way. Let me share you an example of a boy who actually spoke to me, very lovely kid, and he was sharing his own experience of how, because this thing was not done with him, the challenges he went through. He said, Sheikh, I was in this community, everything so closed. We were not exposed to ideas to learn to. We were just told, memorize, that's bad, 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 bad. He said, suddenly I came to the UK, well, he was coming from another country. He said, I came to the UK, I go to university, and I am like, what is going on? There's so much in the world I did not know. There's so much in the world I was not told. And by the way, if a kid feels like that, these are not the less good ones. These are the smarter ones. And if a child comes and tells you that, I'm like, what's going on? This doesn't mean that, oh, I wish I had a better child. Nah, you have a very smart child. Well, the interesting thing is, even though we're seeing all of this happening, still a lot of parents are not waking up. Still, they're not realizing that either you give light to your child to discover truth and be safe on their own, or you're going to send them towards a life of confusion and doubt till, inshallah, they figure themselves out. So this is the core of what I want to say. More than giving your children information or what you think is correct, you need to give them light. I'll explain what light is as we go on. In the Quran, if you see the journey of human beings, for example, in that famous verse, what does it say? Allahu waliyul ladhina amanu yukhrijuhum min adh-dhulumati ila an-nur. God says we're going, inshallah, be taken by God from darkness to light. What your child needs to know is, not what he needs to know, what you need to give them is how can, wherever situation they are in, have a light to know the truth so they can take one step forward. You can't give them pre-ready answers for every situation, because they're going to be in situations you cannot even imagine. If you just want to give them ready-made answers, they'll be in a situation the answer doesn't match, they need to make their own decision. Inside, there's nothing they can use. You can't keep feeding them answers. You can't keep feeding them information. You have to help your child be able to, in any situation, know the difference between light and darkness. Because your child, chances are, is going to be in situations that even if you were there, you could not handle. You did not have the answers to. A parent who just wants to give the child answers and does not realize that the world is so complex that no matter how many answers you give, it's never going to be enough, has deprived their children of a light that can help them see the truth of a situation. Let me give you an example, and I'm trying very hard to make it very implicit, just being careful of different age groups we have here. I don't think I can. Maybe one day we should say, for a certain age group, then we'll talk about that. No, I don't think I can. We don't want to risk it. But basically, it was an example about modesty, of how a parent had told their child, you do this in every situation. And the child listened. But despite listening to what the parent did, because they didn't have any light, they ended up doing so many other things that the parent had forgotten to say, no, don't do those things either. They just thought, if I do what parent said, I'll be safe. But they didn't know, no, in some situations you may have to avoid things your parent didn't know. You need to have that inner light yourself to know I shouldn't do this. I'll explain a little bit this as we go forward. Another area in which, by the way, closed system doesn't work is keeping certain things out of your children's, like being exposed to your children. We talked about ideas, we talked about different faiths and all of that. Another area in which you have to, as a parent, and even for yourself, I'll say, this is not just for parents, it's so important for everyone, is that indecency as well is very difficult now to keep from your children, or even from yourself. Certain things which I remember when I was a child, people had to pay for to have access to indecent things, are now on everyone's phones. Even you go on YouTube, some of the thumbnails, I'm sure, 20 years ago were considered indecent. They were considered to be behind a paywall for someone who has to pay and go access it. Now the same thing that you had to buy a magazine for or pay for, it's going to be on YouTube thumbnails. It already is. Or it's on advertisings, or it's on your phone, or you're going on your email, there's going to be an ad there. There's no way you can avoid it. Now, are we ready for a world like this? I mean, our system of protection, think about it. For hundreds of years, as people who wanted to live modestly, our system of protection was, let's keep things out as much as I can. If I make sure my child or myself were not exposed to things, I'll be safe. The core of our system so far has been avoiding exposure and making sure as much as we can that we rely very little on the human person. Like, very few situations there were that you would say, okay, I'll rely on my child to choose the modest thing. No. As a community, as a culture, we're always like, let me not allow anything to come even close to my child or myself. And now I'm saying we're at a time in which that's impossible. That's no longer an option. So what is the solution now? Please recite salawat. Is it a heavy topic, by the way? How are you feeling? Are you okay? Alhamdulillah, I'm very glad. I'm trying to talk a little bit to catch my breath. You may think I'm talking to you. Internally, I'm just wasting time. Which is a strange thing to do because I'm very short on time as well. But I just wanted to make sure I'm not just saying things. I wanted to connect. Are we all on the same page? Bismillah, Bismillah. Very good. Yes. So far, we were like, I don't want to risk it. Oh, that's a good sentence. I can't believe I thought of that on this spot. So far, you were like, why should I risk it to see if my child makes the right decision or not? Or even myself or my partner. Let me not even be in that situation. let's avoid risk as much as possible. That was our strategy. And I'm not undermining it. It worked. It kept families decent. It kept families strong. It kept children safe. It's been a very good system. But the only problem is that now risks are all around you. Let me scare you a little bit before I give you the solution. If you know the kind of messages I'm getting from people, you see the shaking of the system that we had to protect ourselves right in front of your eyes. Yani, sooner or later, people will realize that, hang on a second, the method we had is no longer working. How do we know that? By things collapsing. Either you have great people, great youth, who are falling into things they don't want to fall into and they can't get themselves out. Or sometimes you see, oh my God, it's not the youth or kids anymore, it's parents themselves. Sometimes I receive messages from parents who are saying, I'm 50 years old. I'm 60 years old, but I fell. I've fallen into something and I can't get myself out. And by the way, I'm not judging us as we go on. You'll see, I'm saying, of course we would fall. And you're going to see more people falling as we go forward if we don't change our system. I'm not saying this to judge anyone. I'm saying this, there's another method, alhamdulillah, ready for such times, that if you upgrade to, inshallah, you will be safe in ways you can't even imagine. I mean, it is very natural for people to fall into things in these days, because you have never been trusted to rely on yourself. If my method of safety the whole time was people remove things from my sight, well, I never practiced how to remain good when things are in my sight. I never had trainings for that. I was never prepared for that. So suddenly, when I can no longer protect what comes to my sight, well, I'm going to fall naturally. And this has nothing to do with if a person is good or bad. It's just that the challenges are difficult. Don't think, by the way, it only has to do with modesty and like lowering your gaze type of issues. The same is with pain. The same is with pressure. The same is with so many other things. But this one is just a good one to explain the method, then we'll generalize it to other aspects of life. I remember, by the way, please apologize me if you feel like some of the things I'm saying may be a little bit too much. But you better hear it from me and protect yourself than get into a situation when a family may be about to fall apart. A few years ago, I remember I was among a group of friends. This is back home. All of them are Housavis. The discussion was this. The discussion was basically this, that one of them was saying, I had gone to my friend's house, and obviously in that culture, when you go to your friend's house, you don't see their wife, in that culture. Men are separate, women are separate, and he said that I saw the comb of my friend's wife, and I looked away immediately not to see the hair on the comb so that I wouldn't get tempted. And I thought to myself back then that how can I understand this? As well, I want to know, how would you understand this? Do you see this as a model of modesty? The intention is beautiful. Do you agree? The person was trying to avoid falling into a desire. But I'm saying, if a hair on a comb is that dangerous, which I'm not saying look at it, but I'm saying, what can we do in a culture like this? Another friend of mine from here, lovely person, I love him so much. He said sometimes when from work I'm going back home, I'm driving like this not to look at the billboards. And again, I want you to think about, how do you perceive this? I see the intention very beautiful. A person is trying to remain modest. A person is feeling the collapse of the system, and this is not a safe system anymore. We were used to, when we go in the street, not encountering indecency. Okay, what kind of world is this? And that's a discussion for another day. What did you do to us? Why do we have to live in a world where every advert for perfume is like that? But it is like this. We didn't want it to be like this, but it is. Now, the person was saying, I was driving and I was trying not to look, and I went home. And now I'm thinking, how much longer can we survive like this? I mean, do you see what is happening? We are towards the end of that closed system approach of trying to avoid. But even looking down is not going to work much longer. Why? Because another friend of mine later told me, Jawad, I was looking down, my phone was here. A push notification came to my phone, I think it was an iPhone, that I couldn't remove. It's there. I look down, it's there. I look up, it's there. I look down, it's there. What do I do? I'm saying that there is a way. Please recite salawat. Let me change the mood a little bit. That was too heavy even for myself. We were in Nairobi for Ayyam Fatemi. Alhamdulillah, I had the honor of being with the lovely Shias in Nairobi. They took us to this place, beautiful place. It was called a elephant nursery or something like that. They had elephants there. It's relevant, by the way. I'm not sharing memory on a night like this. It's for the lecture. Like, I've thought about this. I've even written it down. You'll see it's relevant. They took us to this place, and we got to feed some giraffes, which was such a nice experience. That the day I realized giraffes are my favorite animals, by the way. But after that, there was this small presentation that lovely person was giving us. And it stayed in my mind, and I thought it's a very good situation for us to reflect on our own time. And if you think about it, through everything God is teaching us. God even taught Qabil after Qabil killed Habil. How did he learn how to bury the... These messages are everywhere, even for Qabil. So anyways, we went to this presentation. This person was telling us that the giraffes we saw are protected. They are in a safe environment because Allah, for some reason that we can later on, if you want, talk about it, if you're ever interested in giraffes, said they're not ready yet to be in wildlife. So we have a closed system here for them. We feed them, and we don't feed them the things they can find in the nature. They may not be ready yet to digest that. We give them a special food, and we keep predators away from them. Everything in this area is controlled. And I was like, oh, they're going to stay here forever? He said, no. They get to a certain stage, we train them with certain things like how to recognize a predator, how to get used to the climate outside. There's certain training they have for them, and then they allow them go into the wild. Although, even when they go to the wild, sometimes they still monitor them to make sure they're fine. How is that relevant to our discussion? I have a feeling up to this point in the history of humanity, we've been in that protected area. All of us are, not just district, insan, human beings. Apart from maybe a few people who, as a result of something, they were out. But as a whole, humanity's been in protected areas. You are protected by your family, community, relatives, in all aspects of life I'm talking about. Allah, issues to have with modesty is one, but even with your mental health, you had so many systems around you. You had so many people taking care of you. Even with raising children, you had so many people helping you. The answers were ready, the solutions were tried and tested by your aunts and grandmas and uncles, and they were there to help you even if you forgot. We were always protected. We were always in this. And so now suddenly it seems like we're being pushed to the wildlife. But the difference between us and those giraffes is that the giraffes were trained before they were left into the wildlife. No one's there to train us. And another problem, which is even worse than that, is that no one trusts that we can handle the wild. Please pay attention to this. This is the core of what I want to share with you. No one trusts that insan can handle this situation. And I want to tell you that God, the Prophet, and Ahl Bayt trust in you. The reason all of these examples I gave you of lovely people falling into sin was not that they're bad people. Was that no one ever told them, insan, you're bigger than these things. Insan, rely on yourself. Insan, you can outgrow these desires. The foundation of our parenting was the lack of trust in the idea that my child can choose to do the right thing. Why? Because we didn't even trust ourselves. Many of us as parents and mothers, when we want to look at our teenage boy or our teenage daughter, think about how we used to be, maybe the desires, the thoughts, the plans we had as a teenager, like, no, boys can't be trusted. No, boys can be trusted, but you need to train them. As long as you carry that on, yes, of course, you have never given that child an inner light to be able to do the right thing. This is something that we're lacking. I even spoke to that expert. I said, what is the procedure? Like, what is that main thing that if a giraffe gets, you're sure they're going to be fine in the wild? He said, increasingly, human moderation should be reduced. I said, how can that possible? He said, by the giraffe relying more on its own abilities. Now, what is this inner ability that we need to find within ourselves and our children, that as an insan, I am much bigger than my desires? If for 14 centuries you saw me falling into sins, the moment you let me go, that wasn't because I was bad. That was because no one showed me. Don't look at the examples of insan falling into sin or any type of problem and think insan can't be trusted. Insan was never trained. If you take a giraffe without those trainings from that protected area and you throw it into the wild, of course it's going to fall into the sin. But that doesn't mean that you have to keep that giraffe in the protected area forever. I'm telling you, very few people after the Prophet and Ahl Bayt ever came to us to say, Insan, you don't need to be the kind of being that would have such thoughts about the wife of your friend. Is that the type of insan I want to be? Can I live a different life? Can these things not be an issue for me? And I think yes. And I think if you don't do that, if you don't try to grow, and I'm not saying make risks. No, I'll say what is the safest method for insan to realize, to outgrow. I'm not saying let's make risks or do anything. I'm just saying you yourself are capable of much more than you can imagine. You can live such a beautiful life that these issues are not even a problem for you. Please recite salawat. By the way, can I ask you a question? When was the last time you had the desire to eat soil? To put soil in your mouth? Honestly, does anyone remember? I think for many of us, it's been 25 years. I remember as a child, I was interested sometimes to see soil and I'm sure many of you either have seen a sibling or a child who outgrew that. Why don't I have that desire now? What do you think? Please, if you want, tell me. What happened that right now, it's not a challenge of mine, like on the night of Qadr, it wasn't among my prayers that God protect me from eating soil. Why do you think that was the case? Is it that the quality of soil has gone down, or I outgrew that? I just grew up. Hala, there's this beautiful advice by the Ahl Bayt. He says, do you feel yourself struggling with your hawa? Hawa is our desires, dige. Hala, by the way, desires is a million things, that jealousy, I don't know, ego, whatever, any hawa, it could be a million things. It says, do you want to not struggle with your hawa? So, yes, I do. It says, قاتل هواك بعقلك. Grow, increase your aql. Aql is that feature inside insan that helps you to do the right thing. مثلا the hadith says, Al-aql ma ubida bihi rahman. Aql is, we have this thing inside us, as the Ahl Bayt say, that helps you do the right thing. Aql is the part of insan that takes you towards God. Ahl Bayt say, if you want to outgrow your desires, there's no point in, not that there's no point in fighting them. I'm not saying go for them. No, I'm saying fighting them keeps you at that level. Increase your aql, it ceases to be an option. It's not that I still want it. How can I protect myself? I outgrow it. قاتل هواك بعقلك. Insan, realize who you are. Realize what you are. Asan, you see, Baba, insan and such silly desires. Wallah, this is not how an insan lives. Insan is so beautiful. All of you are. Once you realize that aql within you, you see, oh my God, how could I ever even struggle with that? In the same way that now if you look at your struggles with eating soil, you're like, how? How could I ever do that? So I'm saying, insan, as we go ahead, you need to get to that level. You need to find your aql inside you so that your whole life is not, should I look here, should I look there, because it's going to be everywhere. Halaki, they even want to put it in our brain. You've seen they even want to put chips inside our brain. They want to put ad even here, there. Wallah, I'm thinking maybe in a few years, if you want to give a lecture, there'll be an ad here as well. This is the world we're going to. The threat is coming all the way. Now it's here with our phones. It's not going to stay here. It's going to go inside. Pas, how can I be safe? And again, I said, don't think of fear just in one case. So it could be everything. Your worth. And on everyone around you saying you're not worthy. If you don't have $10 million in your bank account, if you're not having this, you're not worthy. If your body doesn't look like this, you're not worthy. And in every way, your life is being attacked. Your desires, you're not worthy, you should do this, you should be like that. Oh my God. Everything is just coming at you. And now I'm saying the only way to survive at a time like this is to be a kind of person that even if in my brain they plant a desire, it's beneath me. قاتل هواك بعقلك. And that's why you see the method of Prophet and Ahl Bayt is so profound. The Prophet said in an advice to Imam Ali alayhi salam, Imam Ali, I say Imam Ali, the Prophet didn't say that. But he said, if you see people are trying to go towards God and goodness through good actions, you go towards your God bi'aql. And what did the Prophet say? تَسْبِقُهُمْ. The Prophet said, when everyone is just trying to fight these things, do the right things, and that's good. I'm not saying that's bad. The Prophet said, that's good. But Ali, if you want to, bypass them, tasbiquhum, if you want to go faster than them, if you want to go with your aql. We'll talk a little bit about what aql is. But you see that while everyone is struggling to remain thin, there are going to be a group of people who are so above all of this. And I want our community to be like that. It is very, very, very bad if the followers of Ahl Bayt, we don't get that level. Maybe we need to get to a place where we are so above our desires, above our jealousy, ego, enmity, selfishness, and desires, and fears and worries that we can even bring peace to the world. In a few years, believe me, the most precious item in the world would be a person who's not scared. Believe me, there is no way for you to safeguard yourself as we're going ahead, unless from within you realize who you are, what insan is capable of, and then you see insan can be in any situation and still be fine. That's the lesson of Lady Zainab. How can we have Lady Zainab and not be excited for an opportunity of life like this? A person who even after Ashura said, I saw beauty. Because life may look very Ashura as we go ahead, although not in that sense of fighting, but in sense of difficulty. And you need those visions that Lady Zainab said, to be able to see beauty, to be able to enjoy. And then you will realize that, oh my God, no matter what happens around me, I am the happiest person in the world. I'm saying we have an opportunity now for the first time in the history of humanity to witness what does a community of insans look like. Not protected insans in a lab, which we were so far. Insan with all its glory. Now, I remember I wrote a little bit about this in the book on Dua Abu Hamza Shomali, because I feel like Imam Sajjad is giving a lot of teachings on how to get that aql. And then the editor wrote me a comment on the book, which was so profound, and bless him. He said, Javad, it reminded me of that story of Imam Musa Kadhim. I was like, oh, bless you, I had not thought of that. Do you remember Imam Musa Kadhim? Maybe this story of Imam Musa Kadhim, I feel like it was there in history just for our time. No one's going to appreciate it as much as us. Imam Musa Kadhim alayhi salam, this beautiful soul of God, he was in prison, right? And The person who put Imam in the prison was looking for ways, how can I make life difficult for this person? How can I make life... They did different approaches. What was one of them? Let me send two very aggressive, harsh prisoners to the Imam. What was the result? You tell me. The Imam was so beautiful, he softened them. What is Imam teaching us from all the way back in history? Insan, even if they send you in a prison and they put two harsh, aggressive prisoners next to you, if you know who you are, if your relationship with your God is correct, if you're not a protected insan in a giraffe nursery, but you're an insan with aql free in the world, even in that prison with two prisoners next to you, you'll be the happiest person in the world, and you will even soften them. What was another thing they did? They thought, ooh, let me weaken his faith. This is an approach prisoners throughout history have used. One of the things that gives people strength in prison is what? Their faith. So they're like, if we can make this guy fall for a sin or a mistake, it will shaken his faith, and then it will be easier to get to them. So they look for this very, for example, seductive individual, and they send her to the prison. You know the story. This person who was meant to go to the prison and say, how can I serve you? I'm at your service. You know what Imam Qadhim tells you? There's nothing you have that I need. Look at what I have with my Lord. In some of the narrations, they say that, whatever this means, but it is in some of the narrations that Imam even showed him that, look at all of these angels, they want time with me, but I'm going for God, and you're nothing compared to these angels. But even with these angels, Baba, I'm talking to my God, I have no time for them. What is this story of Imam Musa Kazim teaching us? Asan, it's for our time. Insan, you're in a closed room. They send someone to your room. You're going to be so much higher. That person themselves will be changed. That person who went to seduce Imam Qadhim herself changed. Like, Baba, this person has something that no matter what, is nothing compared to what he has. Isn't it a shame if the followers of Imam Musa Kazim never trust that a life like that is possible for us? What I love about this story as well is that Imam not only himself was safe, happy, enjoying his time with God and saying, God, I'm happy I'm in prison to be able to speak to you, but he's also a source of safety and change and beauty for those who want to hurt him and those who want to keep him in his lower desires. He even helps them get transformed. And I'm saying we should become such beautiful souls in the world that even the one who wants to hurt us, we transform them so they become beautiful. The one who wants to get money out of us or whatever reason, they keep trying to push us towards our lower desires to keep us captivated on their systems or buy their products or for whatever reason. We can be so beautiful, we even change them. These are the kind of times we're going to. This is why I'm so excited to be alive in this time, because do you know how beautiful it is the day you see an insan who does not need to worry, oh, should I do this mistake? Should I not? Baba, these sins are beneath us. We are way more beautiful. Inshallah, we'll continue tomorrow on how to get there. But these nights are also very much linked to our beloved Imam Ali alayhi salam. Oh, it's not easy for me to say these things, by the way. Wallah, Zahra, my wife, knows. I don't want to give lectures anymore. It's so painful. But I feel terrible not sharing these things with you. I feel terrible not telling you that this Imam Ali that we are here to honor has way more than you can imagine to give you. Bibin, way more. There was that story, a guy lived in a small village 300 years ago. No telephone, no TV, nothing. He had never traveled out of the village. And he would always pray to God, God, you're so great, you have created this village. Once he was adventurous, he went up the hill and he saw, oh my God, there's another village. And that night he went very spiritual, telling God, God, I was wrong. You have created 2 villages. Hello, you with the understanding of galaxies and the space and all that you have, and you know how massive this universe is. When you think about that person in the village who was praising God for creating 2 villages, how much of God's greatness do you think he had understood? To him, still God was very great, but the greatness was as much as 2 villages. To you, you know, the whole earth and the galaxy is nothing compared to the vastness of space. Hala, I'm saying the Imam Ali that you know right now is still an Imam Ali of 2 villages. Imam Ali has depth you cannot even imagine. But it's really, wallah al-azim, it's a shame if we don't realize this soon. Imam Ali is not just for us. He's the gift to humanity. Not only we're not benefiting from him, we're not allowing others to benefit from him. Imam Ali has the way, the teachings that can help you fly over all of your problems, worries, challenges, fears, everything. I'm not exaggerating. If I didn't prove it to you, never listen to me again. We're dealing with such a special insan on a night like this. If you don't understand this, whatever they give you, you use it as a toy. Even with a child, if you give them a torba, they put it in their mouth. You give them a toy, they put it in their mouth. You give them a phone, they put it in their mouth. You give them the most precious thing, they don't enjoy it. They just put it in their mouth. When insan doesn't know what it's capable of, whatever you give it, it doesn't. You give it Quran, it doesn't use it. Quran itself says, وَيُضِلُّ بِهِ كَثِيرًا. A lot of people are misguided through Quran. وَيُضِلُّ بِهِ كَثِيرًا. Who? Ibn Muljam. He even uses religion, praise, against Imam Ali. Yani, insan, if you don't know what you're capable of, what kind of life is possible for you, which you can find in Ali, even if I give you the best things in the world, you'll never use it. I'll give you dua Abu Hamza Shomali, I'll give you dua Kumail, the du'as that I can show you has teachings the world still does not know. And you say, yes, this is the dua that's 1 hour long. That's the dua which is 20 minutes long. That's the dua which is 30 minutes long. Oh God, there's much more. If you don't trust me, come one day here. I'll show you in front of you. All the experts as well come. Best people in mental health world, best people in this. I'll show you from Abu Hamza Shomali, from Munajat Sha'baniyah. There are teachings there that the world is desperately in need of right now. But we say, hope this is the 20-minute du'avo, that's that du'avo. Tonight, ask God to show us how much more is possible. The depth of Ali. There is depth we cannot imagine.